Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, rulers, shills, legislators, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. Yeah, man. Today we're going to talk about Yemen. And I've done a video about this previously as Yemen collapsed. The government there collapsed. And at the time, the Houthis had taken power. And the country shifted from being essentially a Sunni-run country to now being a Shia-run country. And the implications being on the border with Saudi Arabia and shifting from Sunni to Shia and having this chaos there certainly portends that at some point Saudi Arabia could get involved. But in the meantime, we have pretty dramatic events there. And once again, ISIS taking advantage of the situation, this chaos, thriving in chaos, and perhaps another franchise of ISIS will be declaring itself in Yemen, and this is what's happening so far. So just like previously in Libya, when the ISIS first announced some presence there, I was skeptical because it was only a handful, but since then has spread rapidly. So we're seeing this franchise be extremely successful. And now with the declaration of these new suicide bombings in Yemen as a part of ISIS announcing their presence in Yemen, I have to take it a little more seriously now that we could find this develop into an ISIS presence in Yemen, which certainly complicates things in that region even more. So what we have these recent events, we have these suicide bombs go off in the capital at Friday prayer, and right now, even though the figures have been all over the map, we supposedly have 137 killed and 357 wounded, so nearly 500 killed and wounded in this attack. So a very loud announcement of ISIS presence, if this is true. And then we also have, oddly enough, airstrikes on the president's palace in southern Yemen, where that president has fled. So a lot of heavy equipment is already in the hands of these rebels, these Houthi rebels. So that's very impressive. And then we also have the U.S. abandoning the base there, including a drone base, and 100 U.S. soldiers are thereabouts. I've done videos previously about U.S. military presence there and U.S. war in Yemen that has been ongoing. But now we have U.S. troops getting the fuck out of Dodge because things are getting so bad there. And in fact, Al-Qaeda is taking over this southern region now. And as I brought up in previous videos, we have quite the dynamic going on in Yemen, a country that is conjoined. Used to be three separate countries, is now one, and there are forces in play that want to split the country up. And then we have this dynamic between the Sunnis and Shias there, which has just shifted, as I mentioned previously. And then we also have Al-Qaeda elements struggling there, and supposedly one of the more consolidated Al-Qaeda groups operating in the region right now. And so quite the clusterfuck, as I want to say, more and more often these days, going on in Yemen. And we have the Houthis have taken over the capital, and now 9 out of 21 provinces, and just like in all these other situations, once again we have a vast amount of U.S. arms, military equipment, falling into the hands of what are now Shia radicals in Yemen. There's a story I'll attach below. I'm sure everyone's seen by now that $500 million in U.S. donated equipment, including a lot of sophisticated weaponry, is now going to be in the hands of either Al-Qaeda in the south, taking over U.S. military bases, and also the Houthis taking over all the government forces. And then we still have, of course, government forces in play in Yemen, adding to layers and layers of bloodshed and confrontation between different groups. Another thing that we see in Yemen that is also reminiscent of what we've seen elsewhere is, of course, the Yemeni army, trained and equipped by the United States for quite some time now, just dissolved in the field in the face of this Houthi onslaught. So it doesn't take much to defeat these colonial armies that the United States sets up in all these regions, and that's been historically true throughout history. When we saw it even in Vietnam. At the time the United States left South Vietnam, I think they had the third or fourth or fifth largest military in the world, trained for the United States for over a decade and equipped with all the modern weaponry. And the minute the United States was gone, they dissolved in the field. So anyway, and then we're going to have all these bases seized all over Yemen. So there's going to be more and more arms flooding there. So it could very well turn into another Libya. It's well on its way. And once again, just like I discussed with Libya, presence of ISIS and the symbiotic relationship between the arms and jihadists in Libya and the ISIS movements in the rest of the Middle East, we also have this symbiotic relationship between Yemen and Libya, with the same flow of trade routes, as it were, of arms and jihadis going back and forth between Libya and Yemen. So this will only exacerbate the situation. And also, just to add a layer of humor to this, if one can find any here, is just like Libya was once touted as a NATO UN American success in 2014. Of course, Obama, I believe in the State of the Union, even touted Yemen as a success story of no boots on the ground in fighting the war on terror globally. And we see the results of this failed policy yet again. So here we go. We have no reason to doubt that, given the fact that we have a massive chaos and a power vacuum with the fall of the government and a dissolved American proxy army in Yemen, we are going to see this situation in Yemen get further strained and chaotic, and we will see ISIS presence probably more and more as the time goes on. And of course, should that happen, I can almost guarantee that there will be a Saudi Arabian intervention. There's probably one being planned as we speak. And there's a lot of talk that this confrontation in Yemen is a proxy war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And I suppose that's true to a certain extent. I know the Iranians are known to supply arms, just like all the other bad actors in the world, supplying arms to all these hot spots. And Iran is another contributor to this. And certainly they could be fueling proxy forces there to undermine Saudi Arabia's southern neighbor. But I feel that's a little overemphasized, but I guess it all depends on your perspective. So anyway, as if there's not enough players with their hands in this cookie jar, ISIS in Yemen. Yeah, man, I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.